Something we can talk about is the Ball Blue Book, of course.
Absolutely.
And there's a long history with the Ball Blue Book. It's over 100 years old.
It is.
And you guys have quite the collection here at Minnetrista, don't you?
We do. We have an awesome collection. I've brought just a small handful to share with you. You know, the Blue Book was created here at the Minnetrista Estate in the Oakhurst House.
Right, which is just down the street
just down
here.
the boulevard. I know I keep gesturing to where things are, and our folks online are going, so come see us. But yes, in Oakhurst by Frances and George Ball. They just kept testing recipes. Frances was the type that would collect from her friends and her family as well as her own recipes and just kept testing them. And Elizabeth was just a child at a time, but she later remembered, you know, how excited everyone was that they were doing such a good thing for the community and for the much broader community. So the first one that we actually have, we think they actually started doing sort of their own little in-house publications maybe as early as 1905.
Oh, wow.
But the first one that we have, and just like the Buffalo Jar, it is so rare, and we only have one copy that I've got a facsimile of the cover.
Oh, perfect.
The correct method for preserving fruit, and this was done in 1909.
Oh, wow.
And it was all Frances's recipes and transcribed, most of them transcribed directly from her handwriting into the typed version.
Fantastic.
And I was looking at some of them and we have transcriptions of all of her handwritten recipes. And there was one that attracted my attention. It was like gooseberry ketchup.
Ooh, I haven't heard of that one before.
I'm going, gooseberry ketchup is very simple. I'm just 9 pounds of gooseberries, 6 pounds of sugar. I'm going, oh my.
That's sweet.
But the one that really attracted my attention in this book was chow chow.
Chow chow, which we still get a lot of requests for.
Well, now listen to these ingredients.
This is different?
100 small cucumbers, 2 heads of cauliflower, 1 quart small white onions, 1 quart string beans, 1 quart green tomatoes, 1 pint radish pods, 1 pint nasturtium seeds, and my favorite ingredient, 25 martinis. Honestly, that's what it says.
I have to read this for myself.
It says 25 martinis.
Oh, is that to get you through the
And
day?
I looked in this book, and I looked in this book, and it says 25 martinis.
Oh.
So we did research, we tried, we did and we can't narrow it down. Now, I immediately thought olives.
Right.
Because that's how I drink my martinis. But, you know, some people put small pearl onions in martinis, and I'm thinking, well, maybe, but in this chow chow recipe, which doesn't call for martinis, does call for small onions.
Okay, so that must be it.
I think I've just solved the mystery.
Yes. Yeah, that she was needing to drink a lot, I guess.
Well, you know, I thought maybe I was supposed to say, and while you're preparing
enjoy some cocktails.
Absolutely.
That's funny how things change. And looking at the quantities, I mean, that is 100 cucumbers.
I know.
So, but I mean, the reason people canned before was really to get themselves through the winter, to be stocked up for the winter. And nowadays, people just want, it's more of a, I like to do this myself. I like to preserve some of the fresh produce I get at the farmer's market. So they're doing a lot smaller batch sizes than they did many years ago.
Which makes me feel much better.
Yeah,
100 small
you can handle the smaller batch.
I don't think so. We have a couple of other books. We have, this one's from 1915, and it actually says on the cover, with instructions on how to care for fruit trees and vines, and it also has wine recipes in it.
Oh, wow.
So
From
dandelion wine, elderberry wine, you know, that type of thing, which, you know, that's nice. And that same chow chow recipe is in here. So 25 martinis. Absolutely, 25 martinis. And then we've got a couple of books from the 20s that were interesting. Now, this book I liked because this one actually says how to use the foods you can.
Well, I think that's a great idea. And you know what? We get a lot of requests online and through our contact us email address. People are asking, you know, I got into canning, I'm kind of new to it, and I just loved it. So I started canning this, you know, let's say it's a berry jam, and they're like, now I have all these jars and I don't know what to do with them all. And that's great.
And that's why we're doing all the cooking demos to go with the canning demos.
Chefs showing us how to use it.
Ideas. Now this one was interesting. This has a recipe that includes canned beef.
Oh, yeah. We do have that.
So beef Creole with macaroni.
Oh.
That sounded interesting.
Yes.
I'm not sure I want to can my beef anymore. But,
you know, a lot of people do, and we do have the recipes.
Absolutely.
And our
absolutely. Now, this one, I had to go right to one particular recipe. This is the 1926 Ball Blue Book. Which also, by the way, has a picture of one of the glass jar making machines on the back. We have 3 of these in our collections. One is on exhibition all the time on the 2nd floor in the Minnetrista Center.
Yes, I've seen
that.
But
I went straight, I couldn't help myself, I went straight to lobsters.
Lobster.
Now, the problem I would have with that is actually getting them into the jars, because I suspect I'd just be eating them while I was cooking them. But this does have a lot of the recipes for the meats, including tongue.
Oh, wow. You know, I haven't seen that one before.
Yeah, that's not my favorite. And a great little picture, you wouldn't be able to see it, but it says, cutting for removal of entrails, a bloodless operation.
A lot of interesting information.
Yes, you know, we don't know how great most of us have it these days. We go to the grocery store and our meat is all cleaned and cut up.
And we didn't have to learn how to do
all
all that.
We didn't have to catch it and kill it, and which I admit I would have some difficulty with. This one is cool. This is the 1943. And it has, and I don't know that this is the first time it appeared in the books, but it has a great timetable.
Oh, that's interesting.
For all the different
Okay, so you know exactly how to process and how long it takes.
Including at various altitudes.
Okay, great.
So I thought that was really cool.
Nice
and then
tool.
It's got, the front of it is how to use the ball jar, including the rubber seals and the zinc caps and the vacuum seals.
We had the jars that had those, yeah.
What to happen if it doesn't seal, you know, all of those types of things. So I thought that was really, and of course they have all the pictures of the jars and the current logo.
And the blue is kind of a common theme throughout.
Well, you know, when they started making those blue jars with the sands from Indiana, it just led to a whole new theme.
Yes,
you know?
definitely.
Now, I have to say,
oh, this one, yep.
This one's 1972. And I looked at this. I graduated from high school in 1972, so I just gave away some information. But this looked old to me, so that made me a little nervous. But when I was growing up, my brother, not my mother, but my brother used to can piccalilli. And he would enter it into the county fair, and he won prizes. And here in this Ball Blue book is the piccalilli, or it's a green tomato relish.
We have that in these too.
Yes, I loved that. So obviously it was also in the 1960s books.
Right.
And I would just, now the kitchen would get pretty hot.
Oh, yes.
While he was doing it, because you know we didn't have the air conditioning.
What I like about this cover is it actually has the pint and a half jar.
Yes.
Which is a new one we just came back out with this year based on popular demand, because people were looking for this jar and couldn't find it, and they're like, please come back with it. So we listened and we brought it back.
That's great. And it's got the measuring markings
it has the
on
measuring
it, which
markings
is great,
too.
you know, when you're doing these.
Exactly. And I love that we also know exactly how much it costs.
50 cents. 50 cents.
So it's beautiful,
and of course we keep all of these in acid-free pouches, and I washed my hands all nice and clean before handling them, because we don't want acids on the books.
Definitely, you don't want that.
So
now, how many do you have in your full collection? Do you
know?
Well,
we actually have about 100, but we have duplicates of some.
Right.
And we were trying to figure out how many editions were published, and we didn't really get a full answer, because what happened, and it's very complicated, but what happens is in multiple years, well, first of all, they weren't published every year, and in some years there were multiple editions published, but they might have the same cover, they might have a different cover, they might have exactly the same recipes, they might have just slight variations on the recipe. There's one of the very early ones, it's called Edition A, and there's six versions of Edition A. They have different covers.
Yeah. Really?
But so in 1993, one of our staff members, who's now retired, put together a list of sort of a checklist of all the different editions, A, B, C, D, E, F, da, 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 X, O, that kind of thing. And at that time, there were 59 editions. Of course, since 93, more have come out.
Right.
But they're still not published every year. And I think right now it's maybe every 3 years
Every couple
or
years.
so, 2 to
yeah,
3 years.
we make some updates, and every couple
we
years we do a little bit more of an overhaul. Yes,
right
we have
here,
the 2011.
The most recent.
The most recent one.
Which, of course, you can get in the Orchard Shop
yes,
or online.
Of course.
And, of course, we've got this
great
great book
home preserving. Yes.
By Lauren and Julie Kingery. And I love this because it's just, well, first of all, it's nice and substantial. But look at these wonderful,
beautiful
color,
photography.
glossy photos. I mean,
so it shows you it's not just like canning your peaches, but it's making something else with your peaches into like a peach chutney with all these different flavors.
And they all have these great sidelines with tips.
Yes, we love the tips, right?
Yes.
And I hope you watching online are sending in your own tips too, because the people that are, you know, hardcore canners been doing it for years. You want to share all those great tips with us, of course, and with all the new canners too, because they're always looking for those tips as well. So it's great for people to share those tips.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
So, you know, from the early 1900s, just down the boulevard, to everything that we have going on today, the whole history of the ball jar is right here.
Yeah, I still can't believe we're just down the street from where Frances Ball was developing the recipes for the first Ball Blue Book.
And you know, the public can tour Oakhurst, but when Elizabeth passed away, of course, Minnetrista didn't exist. Well, actually, neither Minnetrista existed. So her estate, her physical possessions were distributed kind of far and wide. So we don't have a lot of the original items that were in the house. So the house at the moment isn't really set up in the way you think of an historic house. But we can tell the stories of the house and that type of thing. We're doing some new interpretive planning around Minnetrista right now, and Oakhurst is a priority for us. So we're looking to see what kind of experiences we can craft, and I'm actually hoping, and we're considering recreating the kitchen as it was during these time periods.
That would be fantastic.
And maybe even making it functional, so we could actually run some canning classes in the original.
Oh, that would be a great tie-in.
Kitchen.
Right where right where she was developing the recipes.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
That would be very cool.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing all of these wonderful Ball Blue Books. I just think it's so cool to look at how they've evolved and how they've changed. And I mean, it's just pretty amazing. But that common thread of, you know, capturing the freshness of the produce in season, really, to enjoy throughout the year. It's kind of the common thread throughout. And of course the color blue, right? For the Ball Blue Book.
Yes, well, you know, and Frances was the cook. She was the one that gathered the recipes, and she was kind of a private person. You know, she supported the arts a lot in Muncie. And we understand from letters she sent to her daughter Elizabeth when she was at school that she'd pal around with Sarah, who was Lucius's wife. They'd go to the movies if George was out of town, or basketball games, or you know, that type of thing. But I think she had two primary loves: the kitchen and all these recipes, and her garden.
Well, I'm glad she shared all the recipes with us too.
Aren't we?
Yes.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Betty, and thanks again for having us today.
Oh, thank you.